Josh Soulier.
Jan Covers.
Margaret Stinson.
John Simonich.
Welcome, everybody. This is the portion for oral communications. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak. Okay, we'll move on. Scheduled matters. Everybody get a copy of the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any discussion on those?
No.
Okay.
I motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion approved. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Passes. Next, we'll go over the second quarter Measure H and I at the same time reports. And Jerry, let's start with you on safety.
Had a meeting with Chief Costello yesterday afternoon with his upper management staff. And we went over the Measure H reports for the public safety, and there was a couple of things that Chief Costello pointed out that's being taken care of. For him, so he can explain. Once again, it was, I have nothing negative to say about the management of the Major H funds for the Porterville Police Department.
Good. Chief?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we met with Mr. Hall yesterday, the captains and myself. We went over both the Measure H and Measure I quarterly reports. One of the things that I pointed out to Mr. Hall as we were discussing our quarterly budgets on these two items was an area in our other expenses. As it did look like that account went over just a little bit, but that was our payment for our Cortico Wellness app that our officers and our professional staff are able to use anonymously if they're having any issues for whatever it is. A little bit of an update with the PD. We did discuss some of the ongoing projects that we had for items that were purchased out of Measure H and I. Specifically, we talked a lot about our drone program and how it's been a benefit to the PD in the protection of lives of not only our officers, for civilians out there. Most recently, an incident we had where we deployed them with our SWAT team, and we were able to bring that to a safe resolution with the assistance of some of this new technology that these budgets have purchased. So I'm available for any questions.
Is your staffing recovering from the COVID issues?
We still have a little bit of that going on, but it seems to be regressing a little bit and calming down, so we're pulling through it.
Good. Any questions for either one of these gentlemen? Thank you.
Thank you.
I pointed out that the meetings I have had with the police department have always gone smoothly. And I would like to remind other members of the Utah committee that if you would ever like to attend those meetings with me, with the police department, their door is wide open. John's been with me for 1 or 2 meetings.
Couple of them.
Bill has been to a meeting. And I think you'll find that it's very informative just on the nature of the way they manage the finances and how, what it goes.
Could you speak up? I can't hear.
Your mic's probably not turned on.
How's that, John?
That's better. Thank you.
Okay, nice beard, buddy.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you like it.
Getting ready for Christmas, or is it just no save November is not over yet?
I'm just too lazy to shave it.
Anyway, as I was saying, all of the members of the committee are more than welcome to attend those meetings. And it's Chief referred to the drone program. I did have an opportunity. I'm sure most of you read the newspaper where there was a significant incident took place in Porterville recently, and I got to see some of the drone footage, and it is absolutely fantastic. Just what I was able to watch, to see the professionalism of the police department in progress and the nature of the benefit of those drones. It is just absolutely amazing. They've got a program worked out that they can have significant drone coverage for an extended period of time, the way they have their processes worked out. And I would like to congratulate the chief and his staff for a fine job of handling that situation.
And that they took that a step further by sharing technology and with their counterparts in the county. And so if they need additional resources, those are readily available. So there's not an interruption right in the middle of a process, in the middle of an investigation or whatever's going on. It's very good. I appreciate that. And then we'll talk more about it at the end of the meeting. But we are going to go ahead and implement the new structure to where we'll be doing teams to go out and see everybody. And I haven't worked out the process yet on how we're going to notify the group every time there's a meeting, but we'll have a process where we are, the primary on the team is going to identify a date when they're going to go out and meet with each department head. And then we'll get that information out to you guys. And if you want to attend it, you're welcome to attend at that point in time. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
With this teams and things you're planning,
Yes, we
okay, I think you are going way beyond what Prop H was set. If you got 2005, which is when the vote took place and whenever the resolutions were put in, the only thing that we are supposed to do is check the expenditures and make sure that the city council isn't filching the money to somewhere else, which they did once. I think this, if somebody wants to, like I love going to the library and finding out what's on, but we shouldn't be forced to go for here, here, here.
You're not forced to do any of it.
It seems to me it's asking, we went from 1 meeting a year to 4, which I'm fine with, but now you're asking more and more and more.
Well, again, we'll talk about it in more depth at the end, but yeah, if that's the understanding, that's not the intent. So let me clarify that at the end of the meeting. Appreciate the question, though. Next, we'd like to bring up Sean Byers, talk about fire. Sean's not here.
Your Honor, he is attending. He did call in, which is a little different from when you're on, like, doing his video call. So he should be able to hear us and have permission to speak.
Sean, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can now.
Oh, great. I just want to, first of all, apologize to everyone. As I was having a little bit of technical difficulty, but yes, I did speak to Deputy Chief Cogburn. We went over the expenditures, and again, everything looked in line. Nothing really jumped out at me. He's doing a great job in light of everything. He's taken real good charge, and he's just doing a wonderful job. And he explained everything to me that I wanted explained, and basically I didn't see anything, so everything looked good.
Very good. Chief, any comments?
No, Chairman, members of the committee, I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you for Sean meeting with me and going through the expenditures line by line, answering his questions, taking time with me. I also want to touch on the drone program that the police department has. Not only is it a benefit to the police department, it's been a huge benefit to my department as well. There's been several large incidents where we've had them available to us, and that partnership with the police and fire is very valuable, and those drones have been used numerous times on our end as well. And so I just wanted to touch on that and share that with you guys. I'm sure Chief Costello may have mentioned that, but I want to take this opportunity to do that as well.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for these two gentlemen? Very good. We'll move on. Next, I'd like to talk about library with Margaret. Good, very good.
What, you can't hear me, can you? I got asked a question a couple weeks ago, why the library is in with the fire and the police. And I had to explain that literacy and crime go hand in hand. When people are uneducated, they turn to crime and gangs. So literacy actually reduces what the police department has to do. And so I think that's something that all of us should, know and tell people.
Good point. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Margaret? Next, we'll have streets with Josh.
Thank you. I didn't have a chance to actually sit down with Mike today, or this week. Angela was able to do that. However, looking over the paperwork that I saw from the email, everything looked well within budget. This is obviously going to be a slower quarter for streets than it is for most, most departments, just because the weather isn't really designed for them to be able to get out and do their work.
Okay. Any comments?
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate Angela giving me a call this morning. We tried to coordinate just an opportunity to discuss some of the expenditures and understanding, the cooler temperatures of this quarter tends to not be as friendly for road projects, but just wanted to comment, the self-perform mechanisms are still continuing. Staff is doing an aggressive job on street overlays and AC paving. Which speaks within the budget. I mean, we've got about $50,000 in staff expenditures and about $250,000 in existing roadway work. The most recent projects were the Main Street paving. So we paved Main Street from Olive Avenue to Orange, and then we also did an extensive paving job out on Teapot Dome from Highway 65 to the city boundary there, just about 200 feet to the west of Newcomb. So I appreciate everybody's questions and thoroughness and looking into the projects and the capital improvement budget aspects. So happy to answer any other questions anybody may have.
Any questions? Thank you. So based on those reports, we need to approve those. John?
I'll make a motion, we approve the reports.
Hang on a second, John. I recognize John Lawless.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
I know that Maria Bemis would like to just enter into the record one of the documents was incorrect, so she wanted to provide a corrected copy for the committee.
Okay.
So recognize that and want to distribute that. So as you take your action, that she has it corrected.
Okay. Go ahead and do that right now. Thank you. Okay. Any questions on the correction? I'm not sure. I was looking for what the correction was.
Yeah, I am very sorry, but the report that I attached to what you received was from the prior year. Just for this page, the summary report, the summary interim performance report for both Measure H and Measure I. So this is the correct one for this current year, FY 2021-22.
Okay,
That's
very good.
my error, I'm so sorry. And if you want
Not
to
tonight.
fire me.
Not tonight. No, 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 no. Thank you.
I motion to approve the reports and the corrected documentation as filed.
Okay. That's a move? Do I have a second?
Second.
I second.
Okay. So that was to accept this report,
That
correct?
updated document and the reports that were filed from the.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. It passes. Okay, that brings us up, I'd like to ask John to come up and address the group briefly. We have a kind of a big meeting coming up in May that's very critical that we be prepared for. It's going to be the end of the year, end of the fiscal year, and review of the upcoming year's reports. So this is going to be kind of a key upcoming meeting. So John, if you want to talk briefly about that.
Yeah, so it's been customary for this committee to review the proposed budget for the upcoming year. And this committee member Stinson was kind of speaking to this. This committee, under its establishment, really only met once a year, which was an after-the-fact consideration, but it was found from an efficiency and effectiveness model to have, instead of waiting for an entire year's expenditures, and then as have already been expended, and I guess this is just a little bit of the history of how we got from here to there, was it used to be at least once a time a year, looking back over the prior year, and that led to some public hearings with regards to, in the very early establishment of Measure H at that time, public hearings, because that's a trigger on if a committee makes a finding of non-compliance with the measure. So, and there was a number of issues that were raised, and there was a public hearing, and in the end, the city council is the jury, I guess, to that. And there was findings consistent and with the committee and the opposite. So one of the takeaways from that, going back to the mid to late 2000s, was to, one, have quarterly meetings so that it wasn't, and it was really to the benefit of the committee, so that it wasn't looking at what you see now for an entire year. But then also to have the opportunity to evaluate what the budget is for the coming year and to provide comment on it before the council adopts it. And then if there's any changes to that, that's you know, being recognized by the committee and specific action taken by the council that this committee then could review subsequently, say in August or September. So that's a little bit of the background. And so that gets to May, which is when we're right now in preparation for next year's fiscal 22-23 budget. And when I say it's significant is because we're looking to bring on 6 additional fire personnel through a SAFER grant, which is going to have some implications both with apparatus. There's an item on the council meeting for Tuesday talking about which lead times right now for equipment are 18 months? Yeah, we're almost 2 years out on speccing, and so you have to ask now for something to be delivered 2 years from now. That's just where we're at, and of course things are becoming more expensive, and I think that's one of the we've had a pretty robust equipment replacement where we depreciate all of our vehicles once we receive them so that they can be replaced. We're not having to make special budget accommodations for that, although those depreciation assumptions were based on something, you know, in some cases, you know, for example, our ladder truck, which has been fully depreciated technically, today that piece of apparatus goes for more than $1 million, which was not the depreciated value that we saved for it. We saved closer to what, 800,000? So we're 200,000 upside down today if we were looking to, so we did fully depreciate it, but prices have changed, and so depreciation. And so it's one of those considerations we're having to give now. We're also having to look at facilities, primarily fire facilities, and I'll speak to library as well, because there's a lot of moving parts. Kind of at one time you spoke about the interim library, but in fire facilities, so a couple of different things have happened there, where the apparatus has gotten bigger and longer, and so the specifications for your bays, your apparatus bays, are now not compatible with today's. So now we're looking at and have issued an RFP for design to begin looking at our stations to increase the door height and probably width, and also to extend them so that you can have multiple apparatus instead of singular. So, and then that's also because of additional personnel coming on, needing to also look at upgrading our facilities to accommodate those personnel. So a lot, I guess part of that just kind of forecasting that there's going to be some big dollars out of Measure H&I, I think, from a capital standpoint for fire, with library as well, with the temporary library coming online, as well as conversations towards, there's active negotiations right now in regards to the new library. City Council has given its direction for its siting at, off of Olive Avenue. So there's active negotiations going on that right now. So some really big, I would say large conversations in regards to library and fire. Certainly streets, we have a number of streets that are, we hope to be under construction. I know that's something Mr. Knight, Mr. Sanchez are working fervently towards. Newcomb is first in line, and as is Villa reconstruction between Olive and Henderson. So those are our 2 major street projects, and those are probably combined 15 million? About 15 million between those 2 projects. So pretty robust work program to be presented to the committee in May. If there's any questions, just a little foreshadowing, and also, you know, I appreciate the committee's flexibility as we've gone through the pandemic from a virtual standpoint, which the virtual participation is going to be an ongoing requirement. This is new Brown Act. There are certain things that are going to live on, and one of them is going to be virtual participation for members of the public, anybody to be able to, in real time, be able to view and participate in meetings, whether it be like Mr. Byers is doing right now, or John by video, Mr. Simonich by video. So we would like to talk about for this committee to be able to see, as monies are being expended, how it's being expended in the field, and have an opportunity. What would be great over, you know, that 4 meeting cycle is to be able to look at 4 different locations For May, you know, if the library is at a place, that might be a great, you know, there, or the police department, be able to, there's been a lot of technological upgrades that have been done in the communications dispatch center, which I know that the chief would like to, and how our emergency response has improved, or how that technology will help us that. So what I hope is in your next meeting in May, also, we won't have to be in here, but we just have to be strategic where that is, because we have to be able to support the technology to allow, like I said, Mr. Simonich and Mr. Byers to participate, if any, or any of you, if you wish to, or specifically members of the public.
Any questions for John? Yes, go ahead.
Actually, it would be for the fire chief, fire department. Do you have a vehicle depreciation program similar to the one that the police department has, so that for those who haven't had a chance to understand that, what they do is each month they put money aside on projecting how much vehicles on their fleet would depreciate, so that by the time that vehicle has to be replaced, they already have the funds in the budget. They don't have to come up with new funds. They already have the money there, so they can go out and buy a new vehicle and then begin the depreciation process on that. Works with cop cars, probably not as good with the large red trucks.
It's nice to have, yeah, we do that in the
Right. And that's one of the things that I've indicated before, that, in my opinion, shows what good stewards our emergency response personnel are, that they actually plan ahead for expenditures, things that are going to cost them a lot of money in the future. They're already prepared for it.
And actually, we depreciate every piece of rolling equipment is depreciated. So any parks vehicle, any of the water, it's a pretty significant program that our Public Works Department manages. So they do.
It is a good program, though. It's very beneficial.
And I have to thank those that came before me for establishing it. I will tell you, not all cities have that, and so they're literally in a budget discussion. A number of cities in our county, it's competitive for a fire truck versus police cars.
Next time I see Guy, I'll tell him.
Yeah, no, I really do give the credit to Guy and John Longley for continuing that, and I've just been blessed and benefited from it. So, and it's one, but it is one of those things where, based on assumptions that were made, it is not in reality today. Beyond, I know that
Nobody was capable of expecting a 20% on equipment like that.
Yeah, and I think it will correct. I mean, we're just in most economists think that we're just kind of in this, supply chain kind of log jam that eventually will work itself out. So I know one of the efforts that all the staff is taking is looking at its equipment, and even if the funds are set aside, can we stretch that vehicle out? I know they do that another year or two, right? That's why you still see some Crown Vics that are still driving around town. Those are depreciated, and but even being able to get a Charger right now is tough. There's been LA City, as an example, went out and grabbed as many as they could. Not that they're using them, but they were a good example of somebody who went out, just bought a whole bunch of vehicles and kind of took the supply away. So there's some artificial economics that are in place too. Kind of an interesting environment right now, especially in public safety vehicles, because they're under a different design and construction for public safety. And then, as you heard, what used to be a 12-month is now 2-year on fire apparatus.
It's amazing.
And it's actually led to a conversation about, and if we know what that is now, and we have a piece of apparatus we know we're going to have to replace 2 years from now, do we talk about getting that started? Because, I don't know, those are some of the discussions that we're having, and that's why I think May is going to be, to hear some of that thinking from the department directors on their capital programs.
Any other questions for John? Thank you, John. So we're at the end of it where everything else kind of goes into place here. And Margaret, to go back to your question, the city appreciates very much. They've told me several times, different department heads and officials, of the work that we all put in here, and it's greatly needed and appreciated. And you're exactly right. The only thing that this group needs to do is to provide oversight to make sure that things are spent at the way that it was intended to be spent. And to your point, that this committee caught one of those things that wasn't done right at one point in time. But usually these things are pretty much spot on. You get the occasional mistake, occasional oversight that occurs. So when I came on board to be part of this group, I came on board just as a individual that to help out the community if I could. And then when I say abruptly, made the chairman.
It was a fair election.
Yeah.
If you'd have been there, you would have.
I was thinking, because I take all the jobs I do very seriously, just like everybody else on the committee. And one of the things that I noticed was the involvement of the committee with everything that was going on. It was too easy to show up to a meeting, look at it while the information while you're at the meeting, and kind of go along with the group versus getting involved in what the group was supposed to be doing, the committee was supposed to be doing. So I've given it about a year and a half of time to try to think through a better way to do that. And we started a multiple step process. And then again, this is all volunteer. So people participate at whatever level they can participate at. If they just show up to meetings, that's great, because we need them at the meetings. We need that oversight at the meeting. But if they want to attend more and get more involved, then there need to be a better path to that. So to do that, that's when we started having the individuals go out and talk to the department heads. So there was more one-on-one time, so there could be a more frank discussion about stuff and look over things prior to the meeting. And then if there was something needed to be corrected, it could be corrected prior to the meeting. So that was the first step. The second step was to broaden that out a little bit and put 2 people on each one of those teams. And by doing that, everybody on the committee now has a job and a task. So everybody can stay involved, maybe at a higher rate or at least at the rate they want to. So you have the opportunity to participate in talking to the committee head, and in your case, Vicki over for the, or Donnie, for the library and literacy programs. But you also now have the opportunity, if you wanted to, not required, but if you wanted to, when Jerry goes to meet with the chief, then you could go to that one too. It just provides more access and more time if you want to invest it, or if you have the time to invest it, that you can do it. But none of it's required. This is simply a way to further energize the committee and for us maybe to be more aware of the job that we're doing. Does that make sense?
Well, I know just going over the paperwork takes 4 to 5 hours, going line by line, looking at what's been spent. So I know it's a big job. It's just, I know Jerry said he, saw the film and stuff. Well, that would not interest me. But I am interested in the police and fire, but not as involved as I want to be in the library.
Okay. So this would open that opportunity up if you wanted to do that. But if you don't want to do that, I mean, you're right, it takes hours to go through all this information because the amount of data there is almost mind-numbing. It's put together by dozens and dozens of people, and it's reviewed by lots and lots of people. Because these budgets are put together, my understanding is they're put together by the people within each department that works on the budgets. Then it's approved by the department heads. Then it goes through a process at the city where they look at it and approve all the budgets and what's going on in the expenditures. And then there's several people in the hierarchy that run the city that review it prior to it coming to us. So there's a lot of checks and balances. But I was thinking that we might want to, again, engage this committee a little bit more if the committee members want to do it. And this would just be a path to allow them to do that. But that, by all means, it's not required to do any of that. Did that answer your question? Okay. Is that a satisfactory answer? Are you good with that? Are you okay with that answer? Is that? You're welcome. I appreciate you bringing that up. Because the paperwork I handed out last time, I didn't hear back from anybody, so we'll go ahead and go forward with those teams. We'll work out the process, probably talk to John about it, but probably through you. Do you contact everybody by email or text, or how do you do that?
Usually by email.
Email. So we'll probably work out the process, and I'll let the team members know that when they do work out a time with the department heads, they'll let you know who it is by email through the city, and then pending John's approval. And then if you can make it then, that would be great. But what we need to do, because it does take a lot of time, we need to be respectful of everybody's time, the committee's time and the city's time, specifically the department heads. So they're meeting with us once a quarter. So we want to make sure we have one meeting per quarter, not multiple meetings. We want to make sure if there's questions that we try to group those together and make them as simple as possible to be responded to and move forward on. So we'll go ahead and do that. I will be contacting you guys individually to get up and give a report back to City Council. It's pretty easy. Takes about 32 seconds. And that's if I'm not in a hurry. So we'll go ahead and move forward to that. The next meeting, I haven't talked to the police chief about it yet, but we're going, depending upon if all the restrictions are lifted, he has an incredible story to tell with not just technology, but in how they're policing the city of Porterville. And one of the reasons why the city of Porterville is an extremely safe place to be. So we'll discuss it with him. If that works out, if not, then we'll pick out one of the other department heads to work with, and providing the provisions for restrictions for COVID have been lifted. And it looks to me like they probably will be. That all being said, we'll let you guys know in advance when that's going to be. But, and I'll throw this open for comment. If the meeting's at 5:30, would you guys like to meet at 5 o'clock? Again, depending upon the department head's approval. And that'd give a half hour for a tour. That may be enough for some, that may not be enough for some, and we can kind of, change that as we go. But if we have a tour prior to the meeting, would that be preferable to a tour after the meeting? Before? Before? I'd like that too. Okay. Excuse me, we'll work out the details on that, but we'll use that as a working framework. The next meeting, I've got some conflicts on May 26th. If we could have it a week before then, on May 19th, that would work out really well.
May 26th, providing there's no World War III, I am hopefully will be in Europe.
Okay.
So is it possible to do it earlier in May?
Yes. I've got a conflict too, so what I'd like to do is move it to May 19th.
Yes, that would be much better.
Would that be better? Anyone else? Are you guys good on the 19th?
That's fine.
Okay.
I think the 19th worked for me too.
Okay, good.
I have a conflict of interest, but considering what time we've completed tonight, it may not.
Okay.
Oh.
Good. So let's set that for the, okay. There will be more discussion. We had one of those a few years ago. That was pretty involved, but well, let's go ahead and set it up then for the 19th, May 19 at 5:30, and then we'll send out a notice if we can, where it's going to be. I'm sorry? 5:30 or 5? 5:30 right now is when the meeting starts. If we can have it a tour, then we'll let you guys know. And if we have the tour, that will be laid out, probably at 5. Again, we'll coordinate that with the department heads. Yes, ma'am. I don't know what the process is to do something like that, John.
Right, but how do you advertise those vacancies? Just on the city's website, or is it on some form of social media?
We can go ahead and put something together to go ahead and just kind of put something on our social medias along with our website, front facing, kind of put the word out there until we start generating some kind of applications from people. And then we would probably have to have, depending on how many applications we get, I don't know if you want to set a date of expiration or just whenever they come in.
Let me think that one through just a little bit, and we can go through what the need is, or because right now I think, because there's a lot of details that back that up. I think right now we have one vacancy, is that correct? And so we need to fill the one vacancy. There's a little bit bigger picture involved here, possibly with some, terms that we should look at. So I want to look at the terms too before we get too far out ahead of this. But yeah, if you want to put something together for it, and we can, before it's published, let's look and see what we actually need, so we know how many people are coming up, and and we just I need to think this through a little bit.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, it's a good point, though. You're welcome. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
On this, more than one person meeting, say with like the chief of police and that. Now, is that one person, he will be in charge of the questioning and stuff, or is everybody going to be able to jump in and ask questions? Because, if you get 3 or 4 people there and everybody starts asking questions, it's going to take a long time.
The questions need to surround what our job is, and our job is to review the documents that we're given for the budget and how that's being used. So I don't think we necessarily need to limit to one person talking. I think anybody can ask a question that wants to ask the question, as long as it's pertinent to the topic.
Okay.
But I see where your point's going, and it can get out of hand. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Jerry's asked me to only go to a couple of these meetings, I think because last time I took it out of hand, and I asked a lot of questions that were outside of the purview of the report, and that did drag it on for longer than it should have. Not too long, but longer than it should have. So, yeah, we need to stay appropriate to the meeting.
Yeah, just keep it reasonable.
Yeah. John?
And if I can just add one comment under the Brown Act. So under the ordinance of this committee, there isn't a set quorum. It is a majority of the quorum to take action, a majority of those participating. So if you only have 5 members of the committee attend a meeting, you still have a quorum, and then actions have to be taken as a majority of the quorum that's present. It's unique to this committee. So this is a 10-member committee. What I would say is there shouldn't be, under the spirit of the Brown Act, no more than 5 folks, 5 committee members at that kind of meeting.
Okay. So with that being said.
In fact, probably no more than 4, because if you have 5, that could be considered, I don't know, yeah, so I would keep it at 4 or less if.
We've never had more than 2.
Yeah, I'm just saying, there was a concern about,
Right.
I wouldn't make it more than 4 folks as part of that.
So we'll set up a process to where when they're
Let
notified.
folks know if you want to come, and this is when it's happening, but I wouldn't have more than 4 members of the committee there.
Right.
Then you might-
And then that's good information. It probably won't be a problem because, again, to Margaret's point, everybody's kind of busy. I just didn't want to limit people if they wanted to attend.
No, and I, the purpose of this committee and the staff's interaction with it is for transparency and accountability to the funds that are expended and raised. So, the deeper in the deep, I mean, there's nothing to hide. I mean, it's a matter of seeing, and that's the charge of this committee.
So what we'll do is we'll set it up to where the teams, there's 2 people on the team, and then we'll have 2 more spots available. The first 2 people that respond to it can attend. Something like that?
It's up to the committee, just I wouldn't have more than 4.
Sure.
In that.
Speaking of that regard, John, in regards to that meeting or the tour, the
Yes.
one at 5 o'clock, would that be considered something that needed to be posted if there's more than 5?
As long, no, you can do, there's a social exemption, as they call it, so, so as long as there's no, not any decisions made as part of it. So if you were debating whether or not it was an appropriate expenditure and you wanted to go
Yeah,
see it,
no.
then you would want to notice it for that, as an example.
Yeah. Okay.
I would suggest to keep any comments,
So it's called the social exemption. So a tour is considered a social exemption. So you could have a majority of council at a grand opening of a, or at a Chamber of Commerce dinner. That's called the social exemption. So they're not there to make decisions. Yeah, they're there to view and have a better understanding.
Good. Okay. All right. Any additional questions, comments for the good of the committee, city?
I have a comment for our chief of police, if he's listening.
He is.
Okay, chief of police in Morro Bay says, told me to tell you hello. I had coffee with him this morning. Jody said to be sure and tell Jake hello for him.
Thanks, John.
Very good. All right. Seeing there's no other business, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you for coming.